There are games that were never meant to entertain. They aren't sold in toy stores, aren't taught in schools, and never appear in glossy advertisements. Instead, they are whispered about in dark corners of the internet, scribbled in tattered notebooks, and passed down through word of mouth, carrying with them a warning no one seems to fully believe. One such game is called the Midnight Game. According to old folklore, it traces its roots back to ancient pagan rituals in Europe. The Midnight Game was never a pastime. It was punishment. Those who violated sacred laws would be forced to summon the Midnight Man, a shadowy figure said to guard the boundary between darkness and the living. The condemned would then have to survive an entire night with him stalking their every move. If they endured until dawn, their sins would be cleansed. If not, their soul would be forfeit. The rules sound deceptively simple. Write your full name on a piece of paper, prick your finger to leave a drop of blood, light a candle, then knock on your front door 22 times, ensuring the final knock falls exactly at the stroke of midnight. When the clock turns 12, you've invited him inside. From then on, the game begins, a game of survival until 3:33 a.m. Some say it's just a modern urban legend, a story designed to scare teenagers. Yet others swear it's real. They claim their candles blew out without reason, that whispers crept into their ears, that they felt something standing just behind them in the darkness. And on one fateful night, 4 friends in a small town decided to find out for themselves. Ethan, Clara, Jordan, and Mia were inseparable. They grew up together in the same neighborhood, bonded by boredom, curiosity, and an appetite for thrill-seeking. So when Jordan stumbled across The Ritual on a shadowy online forum filled with warnings and horror stories, it was only a matter of time before he suggested they try it. They chose Ethan's grandfather's abandoned house on the outskirts of town, a 2-story structure rotting with age. Its peeling paint, groaning floorboards, and cracked windows made it the perfect stage for a forbidden experiment, the kind of place that already felt haunted even before midnight struck. Clara rolled up her sleeves as she scanned the instructions. "If this is just a myth, why are the warnings so specific?" she asked, skepticism and unease warring in her voice. "Because people love drama," Jordan replied with a smirk. He was always the fearless one, the first to laugh at danger. "Trust me, this is just another internet hoax." But Mia looked pale. From the beginning, she had objected to the idea. "And if it isn't? What if we're not just playing?" she whispered. Ethan shrugged, playing the mediator. "If it's real, then we'll be the first to prove it. And if it's fake, then at least we'll have a good story." So they gathered what the rules demanded: 4 sheets of paper, a sewing needle for blood, candles, matches, and a watch to count down the seconds. At exactly 11:59 p.m., they stood in the living room, the faint glow of the moon filtering through filthy glass, each clutching a candle in trembling hands.
They followed the instructions with a solemnity that betrayed their nervous laughter. Each wrote their full name on paper, pricked their fingers to let a single drop of blood stain the page, and placed it before the cracked front door. "Now comes the knocking," Jordan whispered. Ethan raised his fist to the door and began. 1, 2, 3. The sound of his knuckles echoed faintly through the hollow house. They counted together, their voices hushed. 20, 21. The 22nd knock landed at the precise moment Clara's watch clicked over to 12 o'clock. A sudden gust of cold wind seeped through the cracks in the wood. Their candles flickered violently, nearly snuffing out. Jordan grinned despite the tension. And now we're in the game. Mia clutched her candle so tightly her knuckles whitened. "Something's here," she whispered. Her eyes darted toward the shadows beyond the door. And she wasn't wrong. They had invited him in.
The next rule was mercilessly clear. Never let your candle go out. If it does, you have 10 seconds to relight it. Fail, and the only way to survive is to retreat into a circle of salt until the clock strikes 3:33. At first, it was almost laughable. They tiptoed through the corridors, candles swaying, nervously giggling at their own paranoia. The air felt heavier, but nothing truly happened. Then Mia froze. Her candle quivered in her hands. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. They fell silent. From down the hallway came the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate, as though someone was dragging their feet across the dusty boards. "Probably a rat," Jordan muttered quickly, though his voice lacked conviction. But the sound was too loud, too human. Suddenly, Clara's candle flickered and went out. "Relight it now!" Ethan hissed. Her trembling fingers fumbled with the matches. The seconds stretched into eternity, and then a breath, hot, foul, damp, brushed against the back of her neck. Her scream cracked the silence just as the match flared, the candle relit at the final second. The breath vanished, but her tears spilled down her face. "Something was behind me," she sobbed. "It was right there." The minutes crawled. Each second gnawed at their nerves. Everywhere they went, the signs multiplied. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, moving even when the candles stayed still. Whispers rippled through the rooms, calling their names in low, mocking tones. The temperature dropped so sharply that their breath clouded in the air. Ethan felt a cold hand brush his shoulder. Jordan swore he saw a tall, faceless silhouette standing at the far end of a corridor, eyes glowing faintly red, only for it to vanish when he blinked. Mia's candle sputtered again and again, forcing her to relight it with trembling hands. Her tears glistened in the flickering light. "Why are we doing this? Why didn't we listen to the warnings?" she cried. But no one answered. It was far too late for regret. At 2:15 a.m., the first disaster struck. Jordan, leading them along the upstairs hallway, cursed as his candle suddenly extinguished. He struck a match, but the flame died before it touched the wick. Another, gone just as quickly. "Salt! Use the salt!" Ethan shouted. Jordan yanked a pouch of salt from his pocket, shaking grains onto the floor in a frantic attempt to draw a protective circle. But the air thickened. A shadow loomed behind him, massive, faceless, radiating malice. The stench of decay suffocated the hallway. Jordan screamed and bolted, but before he could finish the circle, an unseen force slammed him against the wall with bone-cracking force. His candle tumbled, extinguished. Blood spattered across the floor. Clara clamped her hands over her mouth, muffling her shriek. Mia collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. Ethan dragged them back, his eyes wide with horror. Jordan lay still, motionless. The Midnight Man had claimed his first victim. Only 3 remained.
The clock read 2:30. One endless hour left. Clara shivered violently, whispering prayers under her breath. Mia refused to leave the salt circle she'd drawn, crouching inside it like a child hiding under blankets. Ethan tried to be strong, but even his courage wavered as the house itself began to twist against them. The hallways stretched longer than they remembered. Doors opened into rooms that shouldn't exist. The very geometry of the house seemed to bend, trapping them inside a labyrinth of shadows. Clara's candle failed again. This time, her shaking hands couldn't relight it. Her voice cut off abruptly. Mia clutched her knees, rocking back and forth, chanting, "It's not real, it's not real," through her tears. Ethan stared into the void where Clara had vanished, helpless rage boiling in his chest. But there was nothing he could do.
By 3:20 a.m., only Ethan and Mia remained. They huddled in the basement, the damp air heavy with mold. A wide salt circle encased them both, their candles flickering like dying stars. The voices began then. First whispers, then pleas. They heard Clara's voice calling for help, Jordan's voice begging them to come closer. Familiar tones, but twisted, too sharp, too desperate. The Midnight Man was using their lost friends as bait. Mia nearly fell for it, inching toward the edge of the circle when she heard Jordan cry out. Ethan grabbed her arm, shaking his head violently. "That's not him! Don't listen!" The clock ticked sluggishly. 3:25, 3:27, 3:30. Suddenly, Ethan's candle died. Darkness swallowed the room whole. A rancid breath filled the air, so close it felt as though someone's mouth hovered inches from their faces. The circle trembled as though an unseen weight pressed against it. Ethan struck one match. It failed. Another failed again. His heart thundered, sweat dripping from his brow. At last, a spark caught. The candle reignited. At the same moment, the clock above them chimed 3:33. The air shifted. The whispers stopped. The weight lifted. They had survived. Or so they thought.
Morning light bled through the shattered windows. Ethan and Mia stepped out of the house in silence, their faces ashen, their eyes hollow. They didn't speak of Jordan or Clara. They didn't speak at all. But the midnight game was not over. For those who summon him are never truly free. Survivors often report seeing candles snuff out for no reason in the dead of night. They hear faint knocks on their doors at midnight. Sometimes they wake with the feeling that something tall and faceless is standing in the corner, watching. Ethan and Mia carried that curse with them from that night on, because once the door is opened, it can never truly be closed. And somewhere, when the clock strikes 12, the Midnight Man waits, patient, hungry, eternal.